It's another edition of Time About the Movies. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. This is being recorded on Thanksgiving Day. Actually, as of the time of recording this, it's actually Black Friday, if you will. So if you're going out to get some savings, all three of you, just because of how the world is right now. But the point I'm trying to make here is that this is being recorded on Thanksgiving/Black Friday. But these movies have nothing to do with Thanksgiving nor Black Friday per se. These are the movies that we're taking a look at for September 29th, 2006. And we have 5 films to look at today, including 2 movies with Ashton Kutcher in them. One is a voice, one is starring in a live-action role. The latest film from Todd Phillips with Billy Bob Thornton and John Heder, and a couple of Oscar winners with Forest Whitaker winning an Oscar for one of the movies that we'll look at today, as well as Helen Mirren winning an Oscar for the other movie we'll look at. So we got 5 films to look at. I'm already wasting so much of your time right now. Let's just get to the movies, and let's start with the biggest new release of the weekend, which is Martin Lawrence and Ashton Kutcher in Sony Pictures' first animated feature film under their Sony Pictures Animation label. That is, of course, Open Season. How far we've come. Hard to believe that this is the same studio that would later go on making the Spider-Man movies, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, Arthur Christmas, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and this is how it all began. I say that like it's a very big deal, but there is some notable talents involved in the film itself in terms of who made the film. You have Jill Colton, who was actually the first female principal director on a big-budget computer-generated feature with this movie. She also did a lot of work with DreamWorks. She worked on the Toy Story movies, A Bug's Life, wrote the original treatment for Monsters, Inc. She helped develop Curious George. She went on to go work at DreamWorks. She's done a ton of stuff for various studios. She was one of the people involved on Richard Williams' The Princess and the Cobbler, a.k.a. Arabian Nights. And its co-director is Roger Ailes. Roger Allers, not Roger Ailes, the guy from Fox News. Roger Allers, who was the co-director of The Lion King and also worked on a lot of Disney stuff. The Emperor's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Rescuers Down Under, Little Mermaid, Prince and the Pauper, Oliver and Company. Did a lot of work on Tron, did a lot of things overall with Disney. And he was one of the people involved in this movie as one of the directors of it. And so yeah, some notable animation talents behind the scenes. And a lot of talents in front of the camera as well. You've got a storyline where you have Boog, played by Martin Lawrence, who's a domesticated grizzly bear who's let go into the woods and teams up with a one-antlered mule deer played by Ashton Kutcher to return to his old home before open season starts. And they're being followed by a hunter voiced by Gary Sinise, and the caretaker for Boog is voiced by Deborah Messing. And yeah, the trailer kind of gives you an indication of what the movie is going to be like. And kind of like with Ice Age and kind of like with Despicable Me, it's the first film from a new animation studio, so naturally it's not going to be a great movie right from the get-go. Even though Ice Age is a great movie, Despicable Me, it's not bad, but certainly a lot better than what comes after that. But yeah, this is kind of right in the middle. I mean, this is kind of right in the middle where it's not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie either. It's a film that's just kind of iffy. I mean, it's got very choppy animation overall. I mean, this is when everybody was trying to capture that lightning in a bottle that Disney and DreamWorks had been doing at that time. And this is a film where sometimes the jokes work overall, but then other times the jokes really aren't that funny. The story's not that great either. And yeah, it's definitely a very mixed bag of a film in general. And I would even say that this is definitely one of the weaker films by Sony Pictures Animation because, I mean, as soon as this movie is out, they're already making some good movies with their next film, Surf's Up, and then follow that up with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and yeah, they're pretty much on a roll after that. This film is kind of one of their weaker films, and it's not really hard to see why. Like I said, choppy animation, lackluster comedy overall, a pretty generic script overall, characters who aren't really not that intriguing or engaging whatsoever, and a film that's just passable. It's a passable film. There's nothing really about it that's terrible or anything, but just nothing really about it that's great either. It's just kind of there. It's just there to show everybody that, hey, we can play with the big boys as well. And while this isn't quite there yet for Sony Pictures, they would get going right after this. So it's not too much of a loss for them at this point. But this is a way to show everybody that we're here and we're ready to jump into the game. And they would show it not too long after this. But yeah, other than that, mixed movie. Nothing great. nothing bad either, so give it a pass. So let's take a look at the other Ashton Kutcher movie that came out this weekend, which is, with Kevin Costner also starring, The Guardian. Have we made it clear yet that we're ripping off Top Gun yet? Do we need to keep punching it in your face that we're ripping off Top Gun? Because that's literally what they're doing in this entire movie. And also, of course, Kevin Costner is the only one who survives in that opening scene because he's the big star among everybody in there. He plays Ben Randall, who's a Coast Guard rescue swimmer, and when his crew is killed in an accident and his marriage ends, his commander tells him he wants Randall to go to U.S. Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer A School to train other rescue swimmers. He encounters a guy named Jake, played by Kutcher, who's a little cocky because he was once a swim champion, so Ben puts him through the ringer to see if he can handle it. What a way for Andrew Davis to go out as the director who gave us The Fugitive and also Holes and Under Siege, these really fun movies, and he goes out with a gigantic whimper. Like I said before, this is about as lazy and much of a Top Gun knockoff as you can get, and it's so poorly done, and yeah, it's a bad movie. It's a really, really bad movie, and I feel so bad for everybody involved in this. I feel bad for Costner. I feel bad for Kutcher. I feel bad for Clancy Brown. I feel bad for Cela Ward. I feel bad for John Hurt. I feel bad for Melissa Sage Miller. I feel bad for Neil McDonough. I feel bad for Andrew Davis. I feel, because this is a director who should be still making good action movies as a whole, and he's going out on a whimper, because this was the last film he ever directed, and to go out after you did so many good fun movies like Under Siege and The Fugitive, like, this is the way you gotta go. This is such a terrible movie. It's a lazy film. It's a cliched riddle mess that we've seen done to death so many times. And like I said, it's a movie that's completely ripping off Top Gun. Not the first time Disney tried to rip off Top Gun. You ever seen the movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen? Back in 1990? Yeah, that was another one too. Bottom line, it's a pathetic movie. It's a film that's so lazy, so cheap, so poorly put together, so cliched riddled, such a disastrous mess of a film. I really don't have anything else to say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's a lazy film. I wanted to see these guys do much better movies than this, and yeah, this is a movie that's completely devoid of any talent whatsoever, and just such a gigantic waste of time on everybody's part. My time, your time, their time, everybody's time. So yeah. Avoid this movie like the plague. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is the latest film from Todd Phillips, and that is School for Scoundrels. And speaking of lazy, cliched, riddled messes, here's another one. Here's the first real massive misfire for director Todd Phillips, who had been on a roll with Road Trip, Old School, and Starsky and Hutch, and here is his first major blunder, where you have John Heder as an unlucky meter reader enrolled in a confidence-building class so he can win the love of the girl of his dreams, played by Jacinda Barrett, and the class turns out to be something quite different when it becomes clear to the young man that his professor, played by Billy Bob Thornton, has his sights set on the same girl. So, it's basically Billy Bob Thornton's character from Bad Santa versus Napoleon Dynamite, featuring the chick from The Last Kiss, who was on The Real World. I mean, there's literally nothing that amazing about this movie whatsoever. This is like the third film since Bad Santa came out where Billy Bob Thornton is just playing the same character he played in Bad Santa. In the Bad News Bears remake, it worked because he was playing a character that was supposed to be an asshole in Moore's Buttermaker. That worked. But no, this is the third of like 4 or 5 films where he's literally playing an asshole character just like the character he played in Bad Santa. This is like the third or fourth movie with John Heder playing Napoleon Dynamite because everyone thinks that he should be typecast as Napoleon Dynamite for the rest of his career. He hasn't really done anything since then besides playing Napoleon Dynamite without being Napoleon Dynamite. And even when he played Napoleon Dynamite in an animated series, actually it worked a lot better than most of the stuff he did after Napoleon Dynamite. This is just such a bad movie because it's just not a funny movie. It's a very cliched story based off of a movie that came out in the 1960s. There was actually a British version of this story this movie was based off of. I mean, they're very similar films, but they both feature a tennis game featuring the two rivals going at it. And there's a lot of things very reminiscent of that movie. But it's also very similar to Anger Management, the Adam Sandler, Jack Nicholson movie that only came out 3 years prior. That was much funnier than this. This just feels like a movie that is just literally trying to copy and paste whatever was popular around the time and just try to hide it under this movie that thinks it's more clever than it actually is. And it really is not. There's a lot of talent in this movie that is also just wasted too. I mean, Michael Clark Duncan, Sarah Silverman, Ben Stiller has a cameo in here, David Cross, you have Horatio Sands, Matt Walsh, Dan Fogler, Paul Scheer, Luis Guzman, Jim Parsons is also in the movie, so is Andrew Daly. A lot of really good talent in this movie, but unfortunately, there's nothing funny that they're given to do. This is just such a boring film, a lackluster film that really does not have anything worthy of it whatsoever. And the worst part about it is they really were hyping this up to be a really big deal. I remember going to see a sneak preview of this a week before. This was actually one of the last times they actually did sneak previews for movies like this, and it was just like, you know, it was around it was coming out of they were doing a sneak preview at a time when I can go see it, so I went to go see it, hoping for a good movie because I liked this director's work before, and I came out of it thinking it was okay, but as time has gone on, I've realized that yeah, it really was not worth it in the end. It's a lazy film. It's a boring movie. There's nothing funny about it whatsoever. And it's, like I said, the first real misfire for Todd Phillips, who has made a lot of great movies overall. This definitely is not one of those films. So yeah, you can skip this one big time. School for Scoundrels, terrible movie. So with that said, let's get to some Oscar contenders. Movies that did get Oscar nominations and won some Oscars, starting with the first movie we have here, which is Forest Whitaker as Idi Amin in The Last King of Scotland. The Last King of Scotland, based off of a novel of the same name, depicting the dictatorship of Ugandan President Idi Amin, played by Forest Whitaker, through the perspective of Nicholas Garrigan, played by James McAvoy, who's a fictional Scottish doctor. The film also features Kerry Washington and Gillian Anderson in this film as well, and is directed by Kevin MacDonald, who would later go on to direct State of Play, which I think is a very underrated film. And overall, a really good movie, mostly because of what Forest Whitaker brings to the role of Idi Amin. He, of course, won the Oscar for Best Actor for this, and kind of hard not to see why. I mean, the guy putting his all into this performance, which is really, really good. I mean, it is a really good performance, all joking aside, but it really does show that, yeah, he deserved to win Best Actor for this performance. The cast overall is very good. McAvoy really gets a chance to show what he can do. You know, everyone knows him for his work in Wanted and the Chronicles of Narnia up to this point. Actually, Wanted came out a couple years after this, but, you know, most people saw him first in the Chronicles of Narnia, and they saw him in this movie and realized that, oh, that elf dude from Narnia is actually pretty good. Not the elf dude, the faun. It's the faun from Narnia is actually a pretty damn good actor in this. Of course, Kerry Washington's also in here, too. What more can you say about her? Gillian Anderson, this was the first time I ever saw her anything where she wasn't in anything related to the X-Files, where she was actually using another accent besides the American accent that we know her from the X-Files. I did not know she had another accent to her before I saw this movie, which was something I probably should have caught on at that point, but yeah, like I said, the film overall is really good. The script overall is very good, written by the same guy who's going to write the next movie we'll talk about. Yeah, not much more to say about this one, except it's a really good movie with a great performance by Whitaker that shows why he won the Oscar, and it's just a solidly entertaining film. A really good film overall. Pretty good film overall. Not much more to say about that one, so let's go ahead and take a look at that other movie I was talking about, Helen Mirren starring as the Queen. Another really good movie that's mostly because of the strong performances by its leading actors. You have a story that's depicting the death of Princess Diana from 1997, and the royal family regards Diana's death as a private affair and thus not to be treated by an official royal death. As an official royal death. And in contrast with the views of the Prime Minister Tony Blair, played by Michael Sheen, and Diana's ex-husband Prince Charles, who's played by James Cromwell, which is... Actually, no, I take that back. That's not James Cromwell, because, yeah, that does not seem like it fits at all. James Cromwell is actually Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. And Prince Charles in this movie favors the general public's desire for an official expression of grief. Matters are further complicated by the media, royal protocol regarding Diana's official status, and wider issues about republicanism. And it's a film that was highly praised when it came out, mostly because of what Helen Mirren brought to the table as Queen Elizabeth, who absolutely pitch perfect. I mean, Helen Mirren's been a great actress for so many years, and this was the movie that finally got her her long-deserved Academy Award for Best Actress, and rightfully so. It's a great performance. I mean, the fact that the Queen herself praised her for this movie and actually was invited to dinner at Buckingham Palace. I mean, for a movie like this to get that much praise from the Queen herself, that says a lot about this, is about how good of a performance this movie is, and how good of a movie this is in general. And this is a really good film. Peter Morgan, once again, writing a very strong script. For Stephen Frears, who did The Grifters, this is probably his second best film overall. A really good film with a strong cast overall, a really great storyline that works mostly because of the cast itself, the casting, and just how everybody fits their roles so well. It's a really engaging story. It's a really well put together film. I really like it a lot. I think it's a very good film. Watch it mostly because of what Mirren brings to the table as Queen Elizabeth. It's like with Forest Whitaker. I definitely can see why she won Best Actress for this, and it's a well-deserved performance that really does deserve a lot of attention for that performance in this. It's really good. What more can I say, man? The Queen, just slay, Queen, slay. Was not even intending for that to end that way, but whatever. That's the end of this episode of Time About the Movies. And next time we meet, we will jump into October with some more Oscar winners here, including Martin Scorsese directing the film that finally won him his long-deserved Oscar. The star-studded The Departed with Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin among the cast. The prequel that nobody really was asking for, but the first film was a success, so we're going to do it anyway. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. Dane Cook starring in a movie with Jessica Simpson and Dax Shepard, Employee of the Month. We also have one other movie here, Kate Winslet and Jackie Earle Haley starring in Little Children from Todd Field, the director of In the Bedroom. 4 movies we'll take a look. Is it 4 movies? Yeah, 4 movies. 4 movies we'll take a look at next time around. So we'll delve into all those on the next show, which will be coming up tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post new videos here every day, and you get updates on when new videos come out when you hit the notification button. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.